Hello everyone, I'm Sophia Jackson, Events Manager at the Society of Authors. Joined the SoA in March 2018, and during the lockdown I've worked with colleagues to bring you the SoA at Home Festival. Thanks for joining our 6th afternoon tea in the series, and we're very lucky to have as our guest this week Vanessa Fox O'Loughlin. The SoA at Home Festival is running for 12 weeks until the 9th of July. All sessions are free, but if you can afford to donate a few pounds to the Authors Emergency Fund for authors in financial difficulty due to the health crisis, please visit our GoFundMe page via the link in the chat. And if you have any questions or comments, we would love to see those in the chat too, and we plan to get to those in the second half of this session. Thank you to my colleague Francesca, who will be moderating this session too. Today's format is a quick intro from me, then Vanessa and I are going to chat for about 30 minutes, and then we will have about 15 minutes for your questions. Here's a bit of background on Vanessa. Vanessa is founder and managing director of the award-winning writing resources website, writing.ie. The Inkwell Group Publishing Consultancy, as well as joining the SoA's management committee last year. She's also the founder of Murder One, Ireland's International Crime Writing Festival, and she's the outgoing chair of Irish Pen. Writing under the pen name Sam Blake, she's the author of the best-selling Cathy Connolly thriller Little Bones, Deep Water, and No Turning Back, all published by Bonnier in the UK. Her most recent book, and the next on my list, is Keep Your Eyes on Me, and was published by Corvus in January and went straight to #1 in Ireland. Her next standalone thriller, The Dark Room, is scheduled for release early next year. Congratulations on your many achievements, Vanessa. And thank you for your amazing Author Voices video. The first part of this session is an extension of that and offers an opportunity for you to share more about your work with us. Could you start by giving us a short tour of your workspace and telling us about your creative routine?
I'm laughing at this because my workspace is an absolute tip most of the time. I live in a building which used to be an old post office. So I'm coming to you from Dublin, just south of Dublin, a place called Kilmechanic, which is on the edge of the Wicklow Mountains. And my house used to be an old post office. So the room that my office is in was actually the post office, and used to have a post office counter and everything in it, but it's quite a mess now. So I can give you a very small tour of my desk. I was just saying earlier, I put my fairy lights on. When I'm writing, I switch from being sort of the businessy side, where I'm trying to focus on all the boring bits like invoicing and all that type of stuff. But when I'm writing, I put the fairy lights on to try and create a little bit of space. So these are my shelves. I spin you. You really don't want to see. You really don't want to see the space, but it's a bit of a mess. Can you go around? Got a fireplace and more mess. And I'll go around that way. A bit more mess that way. That's my lights. And lots of mess over there too. So yeah, I'm a very organised person. That's why I keep my desk relatively tidy. But the rest of it's a bit of a, oh dear, gosh, the confessions. This actually should be called Confessions of a Writer, shouldn't it? Never mind afternoon tea. What really goes on? Sorry, now I've forgotten what the other half of the question was. Do you have to?
Could you share more of your creative routine with us?
My creative routine. Okay, so basically, because I run a couple of businesses as well as write, fitting the writing bit in around the sides is quite tricky. But my businesses are very much creative businesses. So I do a lot of event planning, event management, and so that's creative too. So I do a lot of brainstorming with my colleagues, which can be, at the moment, is obviously via Zoom. But in terms of writing, I try and write. I try at least. At the moment, I'm trying to think every day, if not necessarily write. And because I think the writing every day thing is something we should all be doing in principle, but in fact, it's a lot harder when you actually try and come down to it than, you know, people really readily admit. So I definitely try and do something every day. But I think the creative part of the creative process is that thinking and coming up with ideas as much as it is actually writing. So when I am actually sitting down to start a novel, I'll barrel straight through it. I'm trying to get as much time as I can out of the working day as possible. But yeah, the creative time is, I suppose, it's just thinking time. And I don't know, I do that when I am washing up and putting the washing out and doing all those other things as well. Yeah. Is that an answer? I'm not sure.
Thank you. And how are you coping mentally and physically with the lockdown?
At this point, I am very fed up with the lockdown. I think because I was away in London, actually, I was with you guys for the Not the London Book Fair, and I was in Frankfurt on the Friday before that. So we went into lockdown here in Ireland on the 12th of March, and I only got back from London probably on I think the 11th. And so really I went into like a 2-week isolation period just in case I had picked anything up on my travels. Really that sort of followed on. So, and we live out in the country here, so we're quite isolated anyway. So really I've only been to Tesco's about 4 times in the last 12 weeks, and that's as much as it, and everything else is online at Zoom. And I was just saying to you earlier, I'm getting to the stage where Zoom is fine and it's great. And it's great from the point of view of the fact that I can dial in from Dublin to people all over the world. And I've been doing some fantastic Facebook Live sessions, which I've started with my agent, Simon Trewin, on Fridays at 12 on the writing.ie Facebook page. So that's fantastic. And you feel like you're really socialising. But yeah, the rest of it has been quite, I'm now getting to the stage where I need to be let out. But,
yeah, I think we can all relate to that at the moment.
Yeah.
How has your normal routine changed since the lockdown?
I think my day's restructured a bit. I think a lot of people are finding this because I don't have a school run to do in the morning. I'm starting later. So I'm hitting my desk. I found this. I actually started off when the lockdown started, because a lot of my business is online and it's digital anyway. I got very, very, very busy, and it was mad busy. And I was also trying to finish a book and get my edits in, and then obviously copy edits. So really, this is possibly the first week that things have been a bit calmer. And yeah, but my week has changed. My structure of my day has changed because there's no school run in the morning. I have a 15-year-old who I would normally be taking to school, so I'd normally be at my desk by 9, or if I've stopped in Tesco's and grabbed a coffee or whatever on the way back home, it might be 9:30. But these days I'm sort of sloping into the desk about 10 o'clock, and I find that missing that hour is actually quite crucial, because by the time you get to the end of the day, you suddenly find you're trying to catch up. So yeah, it's difficult. I think it's difficult to stay motivated when everything's, you sort of feel like part of your brain thinks it should be on holiday because we're all on lockdown and nobody's going to work, but the other part of the brain knows that it should be really busy and doing things. So keeping up the momentum is hard, but yeah, we're managing. We're surviving. We're all here still.
Good, I'm glad. You mentioned earlier about your weekly Facebook Lives with your agent Simon Trewin. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, that's when we started at the beginning of a week into lockdown. Does my sound okay? Has it suddenly gone peculiar on you? I can hear feedback. Good start. Yeah, we started it about a week or so into lockdown, maybe 2 weeks into lockdown, and really I do a lot of events because I work on the publishing side. I suppose what I do, I'm the bridge between the writer and the publishing industry in many ways, and whether that means getting published workshops or helping new writers explain to them how the system works, that type of thing. And so getting him involved with writing.ie was really a way of sort of outreach, because I think a lot of people felt that they couldn't get out to events and they didn't know what was happening, and we really wanted to just I suppose demystify, while we had the opportunity to try and demystify the publishing process, and it's been really fun. We've had some amazing people dialing. We've got people coming in from Nova Scotia and Spain and all over the world. And it's been really, really interesting. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to have a chat. It's Fridays at 12, and I think we've got like a little gang now, and people really look forward to it. I think you need things like that to mark the week. When your structure's gone. I think I'm quite a structured person, and I think for anybody that's, when the organisation all goes out the window because you don't have your school run or you don't have whatever it is, that you need something to give you anchor points in the week. And from that point of view, it's been great. And it's great fun. It gives us an opportunity to chat, and also chat to other people, and be useful and provide information. Not many people get an opportunity to have access to a literary agent like that, like straight up face to face. So it's good fun.
Yeah, I know what you mean in terms of marking the week. We found with our afternoon teas that our members are actually making cakes and brownies in time for these 4 o'clock sessions, so it's really nice to hear that feedback.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a great idea.
What do you have around you, and what do you need in order to write?
What do I need in order to write? Nothing, actually, very much. I can write anywhere. I think because I am quite busy, and obviously I've got kids as well, that I've learned to adapt over the years. So I mean, I used to write before I got published, and I was scratching away. I write sitting in the car park in Tesco's with the child asleep in the car. You literally mine time from every single minute. And so I don't need very much. In an ideal world, if I can get access to the internet, I have a soundtrack that goes with each book, and I try and plug in, and if I can put that on, then, and the music helps hugely. I mean, it can be terrible music too. It doesn't, it just tends to relate to the characters in the book. I find that amazingly helpful because it helps shut off the noise in my head. So it doesn't matter where I am. I'm not worried about sort of background noise. It's more the noise in my head that's a problem, because it's always telling me that I should be doing something else other than, the whole procrastination issue. You should always be doing something else more important than writing. So, so the soundtrack helps hugely, but otherwise I'm grand. Wherever I can go, that's just where once I've got a chair where I'm not going to get backache, I can sit and I can work. So I try not to work in my office though. I think offices, because the office is where the day-to-day work goes on, I find it hard to concentrate in here, and quite often I'll decamp to the kitchen table, or in an ideal world, a coffee shop or a hotel or station. It can be anywhere, wherever I happen to be going at the time. I was traveling a lot before this all happened, so I'd be away maybe 2 or 3 times a month, and I love that time, because that gives me, when you're on a plane, or you're waiting in an airport, or you're waiting for meetings to start, there's always time then, and I find that a good time to write. I think it's because you've got a limited amount of time, and you can focus much more easily when you've only got like half an hour or whatever. Whereas if I think I'd be one of these people, if I went away to a retreat for a week, and that and I got locked away from the internet, and they said off you go and write, it would be a complete disaster, because I'd be great for the first couple of hours every day, and then I'd burn out, and then I would be then I'd be having a nervous breakdown, because I knew I needed to concentrate and I should be writing, and it would be hard. So I like the variety. I think that's important. Variety is important in my day, to try and mix and match. And I think sitting down and writing for a whole day could be tricky for me.
And did you start writing when you went on a sailing trip with your husband? Is that how you wrote your first?
No, actually he went sailing and he left me at home. Yeah, okay. So he went sailing across the Atlantic for 8 weeks, and it was November, and I hadn't been in Ireland very long, so I didn't know that many people. I didn't have any kids, so basically I was stuck at home for 8 weeks on my own in the dark. And but I had this idea for a book, and I just started working for an event management company then. I couldn't even, it was a long time ago, and I didn't even really know how to use a computer. So I think I was getting computer lessons in the office at the same time. So I started writing this thing longhand, and then going into the office in the evenings and at weekends to type it up. And because I didn't have a computer at home then. And then when he got back, sort of 8 weeks later, it was in November, so it was kind of right up to Christmas. He bought me a computer for Christmas, and I was able to transpose the whole thing and obviously keep going. And yeah, I just literally started, and the bug really bit. Now, obviously, I was absolutely convinced that was going to be the biggest bestseller of all time, because I think you always are with your first book. And needless to say, I sent it out, did all the wrong things, finished it, last full stop down, and off it goes, winging its way around the publishing world to be duly rejected everywhere, all around the world. But it was a really good learning ground. I think you need that first book. Often you need that first book to just, I suppose, learn the ropes. And I had another idea, so I wrote the second one. I wrote the third one. By the time I got to the third one, I was chatting to an editor, and she was really interested in it. So things started to move a bit more then. But yeah, that's how it all started, and really everything grew out of that. Just, I think I went off to do, I sort of realized when I got involved with the editor on the third book, I realized what I didn't know as much as what I did know, and realized that I really needed to learn quite a lot more about writing. And I wanted to do writing workshops, and I managed to get away for a weekend down to Dingle in Kerry, which was fantastic. But in order to do it, I had to get my parents to fly in from the UK. My husband worked shifts because he was in the police, so getting babysitters was always a trick. And yeah, and so flew my parents in, messages on the fridge, all the frozen food and all that type of thing. Went down to this fantastic weekend, but then when I got back, realised that there weren't any workshops that I could do. The whole babysitter thing was an issue. So that's really how I started Inkwell. I decided I'd start my own, and that's really how everything began, and everything's been built since then.
I'm quite intrigued by the soundtrack for every book. So what songs were on the Keep Your Eyes on Me novel?
Keep Your Eyes on Me was a mixture of stuff, because Victoria, who's the lead character, had been a ballet dancer, and she was training with the Royal Ballet, I think it was. I'm trying to remember back, but she had a really bad car accident and ended up having to rebuild her life, and then became a psychologist. So she's very much into classical music, so there was a lot of classical ballet type music, but a lot of it was quite, I suppose, not violent is the wrong word, but there was a lot of the Mars movement and lots of big stuff going on, because she's got quite a lot of angst, and she has a husband who's a bit bold, and really we start the book with her discovering that his latest mistress is pregnant, and so she really drives the story, because it's a book about revenge. It's a book about her finding a way to get her revenge, and a girl called Lily, who she meets on a plane to New York. Actually, she's going to New York to hammer her husband's credit card, and she meets Lily on the way, and they discover they both got men in their lives that need sort of sorting out. So yeah, so it was mainly classical for her, whereas the previous books, Kat Conley is the Garda detective who is featured in the first 3 books, is only 24, and she's a kickboxer, and she's quite she's obviously very young, so that was all pop music, so it's a totally different soundtrack. It's a very much like the type of stuff that she would listen to, the type of stuff that you would hear like in the gym. So yeah, complete contrast. I'm just working on, I did a book called The Dark Room, I've just finished, it's coming out in January, and that was a mixture of different bits and pieces, but the next one, I don't know what the next one's going to be. Partly it tends to work in with the characters, whatever the characters listen to, so we'll have to wait and see who's next.
Going back to the lockdown, how do you keep writing during challenging times?
One of the things about lockdown, I think, is the anxiety of not knowing what's going on, and so I think certainly at the start of lockdown, loads of people had a huge problems concentrating, and I know I did. Even concentrating on reading, I couldn't do that either. I couldn't read fiction for some reason. I think a lot of people had that issue. For me, reading non-fiction was what broke that. So I just went back to a non-fiction book that I've been reading, and once I was able to, I suppose, retrain my brain to concentrate on reading, then I was able to get back into fiction. But certainly in terms of writing, yeah, it's the creativity is affected by anxiety massively. And I think one of the problems we have is that we think we should be doing something, and then that makes us more anxious, because you think, oh, well, I should be writing, I've got all this time, and it's not that summer holiday thing, but it's we're not working or whatever, we should have more time in the day, and that becomes, you get into this vicious circle then of anxiety, of worry, and writing at all. So yeah, so it is hard, but I think because I had edits to do, that helped, and I was working on stuff that I'd already worked on. So now I'm at the stage to start the next book, and it's all new stuff, and that's always, that first draft is always the hardest, I think. So yeah.
And are you the kind of person that needs to do a writing diary or journal?
No, I haven't managed to do that. I think a few people are, but I'm not. I do have this 5-minute journal, which is a really interesting American thing, which is where you write down your successes, and so at the start of every day you write down you hope to do in the day, and then your successes. And I haven't actually been doing very much of that, but I've been looking at it, and it's full of motivational quotes. I'm really into. I like at this time, I suppose I'm avoiding social media a lot because it's just turned into a toxic swamp. But Instagram is quite good, and using filters on different things means that I love motivational quotes, and there's been some fantastic Insta poetry and stuff like that. That's really interesting. So I've been sort of dipping into that more than anything else, I think.
Could you tell us a bit more about writing.ie and why you set that up?
Writing.ie is basically, it's a massive website. Somebody's saying they've got sound problems there. I've got a bit of feedback too. I don't know if it's me or if it's an internet issue. How does it sound to you, Sophia?
It sounds fine to me.
Okay, is anybody else having a problem? It might be their internet at their end too, of course. We can't tell. Right. Anyway, we'll power on. So writing.ie is basically an online writing magazine, and what we do is we update literally daily. We have resources featured, just practical and we have then features which go out every week. And yeah, it's very active, great community of writers around it. And basically it just came out of the web as the newsletter that I sent to my Inkwell people. So when I first started Inkwell, which was this sort of network of people who came to the workshops that I wanted to organise, I was sending out a newsletter to them, and with events in it and competitions and that type of thing. And literally every time I press send, somebody would email me and say, oh, look, you know, there's this particular competition or this particular event happening. And I just thought, particularly in Ireland, where we have a huge literary community and there's loads of stuff happening all the time, I thought, if I didn't know about it, then how does anybody else know about it? So when I discovered the writing.ie domain was available, I just thought it'd be a great opportunity to put the Inkwell newsletter into a website, and that's essentially what it is. So basically, it's an online writing magazine. We've got blogs, we've got a member section. People can join it and put up details of their own work, and then they have access to the members' blog that they can keep telling what's going on, you know, what they're doing. We've got a news section. I made a video, a series of videos called the National Emerging Writer Programme, with Dublin UNESCO City of Literature a few years ago, and so we've got mountains of video footage that's in the site too, and that people can access on YouTube, which is fantastic. I spoke to Carlo Gebler and Sinead Moriarty and Declan Hughes, 3 really great writers, about their process and you know, how they plot and plan, whether they do character, all those types of things. And so the National Emerging Writer Programme it's all free now. It's on YouTube as well. People can find it there. So writing.ie is just full of stuff, and it's constantly changing and updating. I've started a podcast called Behind the Bestseller, which is a Sam Blake podcast, just a massive identity confusion, I know, but that sort of ties into writing.ie too. So so there's lots going on. So it's busy.
Not only have you got that going on, you've also got your Inkwell Consultancy.
I've lost your sound now. You have to shout.
You've also got the Inkwell Consultancy happening as well. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So I suppose writing.ie is like the free shop window, if you like, and has just tons of information, thousands of articles. And Inkwell is the one-to-one. So if people need help on a one-to-one basis, we do lots and lots of readers' reports. So I have a whole panel of authors that work for me who read people's books from beginning to end, and then give them written feedback on whether or not, you know, what needs fixing, whether the, you know, characters need developing more, or writing technique, or whatever the issues are, to try and basically just bring them up a level, to bring them that bit closer to publication. And I suppose that's what I'm all about. It's all about, because I was that new writer once who, you know, had no idea what they were doing when they came into the business. I think one of the key things about publishing is that there's no other business like it. There's just no other business like it. The business model is completely different to everything else. And so understanding it is a huge, it gives up writers a huge opportunity, if they can understand it, to understand how they can make it work for them and how they can access it. And a lot of what I do is about that, is sort of bridging that gap and trying to provide information. So Inkwell does that too. So yeah, we do lots of consultancy, chat people. I do a manuscript submission assessment thing as well, where I look at people's covering letter and synopsis and first 3 chapters, and help them with those. But we covered that actually with Simon as well. The first 2 videos we did on Facebook, they're all still on the writing.ie Facebook page, are all about pitching and covering letters and what to say and what not to say. So there's massive information out there. Yeah.
So many people know you under your pen name, Sam Blake. Why did you decide to have a pen name in the first place?
Okay, so my full name is Vanessa Fox O'Loughlin, which is quite long, and we established when we first were chatting that pronouncing O'Loughlin is a bit of a tricky one. So putting it on the cover is a bit of a squish. And there's also this theory that men don't like buying crime novels written by women, which sounds completely ridiculous until every time I do an event, I say, and I'm thinking that just sounds so mad. But you do an event and there's always somebody nodding at the back, always, and then they come out and they say, oh yeah, actually you're right, my uncle or whoever doesn't buy them. So there's that. So it was sort of in keeping with that and the fact that I had this great long name, it seemed sensible to come up with a pen name. And one of the great things, so pen names are funny because they can be really great, because when I'm writing, I like to be Sam Blake, and it means that I can park a lot of, like, you know, the real life and get into that sort of author persona. So that's an advantage. It can be really weird when you do events because people use your other name and then you have to remember who you are. But it's great when you can choose one, because we've managed to choose one that fits nicely at eye level on the bookshelf. And I'm between, certainly in Ireland, I'm between Vinci and Sebastian Barry, and there's Benjamin Black and a whole load of people on that shelf in the bees. So you can pick something that's a good, you know, good one to use, which is great. But yeah, that's the reason behind it.
And what was it about the genre of crime that interested you?
I'm really interested in peoples. I'm really interested in people, and I'm really interested in what's going on in people's lives that we don't necessarily find out about when we first meet them. I'm also massively nosy. I think all writers are basically nosy, aren't they? But I'm the person that's sitting there in the cafe listening to everybody else's conversation, and on the train, and, you know, I'm allowed to do that because I'm a writer. I can put a little feel that it's an okay thing to do. So I'm really curious, and I'm really interested in how people interact and the things that happen that you don't necessarily expect. And I read crime, so I think that's where it comes from. I think you need to read what you write, and I'm really interested in mystery. I'm really interested in things that, you know, where I'm there as a reader trying to puzzle it out with the characters, something that challenges you a bit, and there's unexpected things at the end. So that's really why I write it. So whether I achieve it, I'm not too sure, but I hope so. Seem to get good reviews so far.
Who are some of your favourite crime writers?
Say that again.
Who are some of your favourite crime writers?
Who are my favourite crime writers? I love Karen Slaughter, and I love Lee Child, and who else? There's loads of them. Alex Marwood would be on the shelf behind me here. Different books. There's so many brilliant. There's some fantastic Irish female crime writers too. We've got a big like Jane Casey. Jane Casey's books are amazing. There's a fantastic lady called Liz Nugent, who I'm sure you've heard of in the UK. There's some great books coming out. There's a fantastic book coming out in August by a friend of mine, Ryan Howard, called The Nothing Man. I think Nowhere Man, The Nothing Man. She's going to kill me now because I got the title wrong. But it's amazing, and it's about a serial killer who one of his victims gets away, and she writes a book about the experience of him killing her family and the fact that she's hunting for him, and he reads the book, and so the book is a book within a book, so it's about him. So clever, it's brilliant. So there's so much out there. It's fantastic. I love high concept books. I love innovation and things that are original and things that approach things from maybe a different angle. There's lots of great authors out there at the moment. But yeah, bit of mystery.
And do you have any tips for anyone who wants to branch out as a crime writer?
Who wants to write as a crime writer? I think any writer, the best advice I was ever given was just keep writing. That was by a friend of mine called Sarah Webb, who is a children's author, and she's written about 30 books now at this stage. And so absolutely just keep writing, because finding your voice is really, really important, and that can take more than one book. I think it's hard for people to realise that perhaps that first book that you write isn't going to be the big breakout book. It's very hard to realise that, but you know, you really do just have to keep on writing, and you will get there. You will find your voice, and you'll sort of learn the craft. Because I think that's we tend to think because we learn English in school and we can write English, and that writing is actually not that difficult, and we all read, obviously, but in fact it's all those techniques that you have to learn along the way that's really important. But I think for crime writers, do your research, but don't get too stuck in it, because I think what can happen with research is that you get so mired in it because it's so interesting that you end up going off down these rabbit holes and you actually never end up writing anything. So it's really getting to the end of the first draft, doing enough research that you know you're not doing it wrong, because if you've got a piece of basic evidence, say whatever it is, or a twist, or something going on, and you've got it wrong, then you can end up having to rewrite the entire book. So do enough research that you can get those bits right, just write to the end of the first draft and really love doing it. I think it's all about, I suppose it's all about people, isn't it? It's motivation. I think writing crime's all about understanding motivation and getting into what makes a character tick. So it's all, although there's always that thing about how much is plot and how much is character. If you don't have a great character, then you've no plot. So that's really, really important.
What are you reading at the moment?
What am I reading at the moment? I have a couple of books next to my bed. I have got A Talented Man by Henrietta McKirby, which is a crime novel based on, I can't remember when it's set now, but it's based on a missing manuscript of Bram Stoker's, which is just so beautifully written. She writes quite literary, very literary crime, just gorgeous. So I'm loving that. I've also got Adele Park's books next to my bed. I'm also reading The Golden Age of Murder by Martin Edwards, which is just magic. So for anybody who's interested in the background of crime and crime writing, it's all about, just adore it. I love the 1920s and 30s. And it's all about the sort of establishment of the detection club and Agatha Christie and Dorothy L. Sayers and that whole period. So that's fascinating. So I'm reading that too. So I'm reading a whole load of bits and pieces. Yeah, I have a few books on the go. I just need to concentrate. This is a concentration thing, trying to sit down and just do the one thing is hard at the moment. So yeah.
I've got a few more questions and then we'll head over to the chat. So for you, what are some of the positives that have come out of this global pandemic?
I think there's actually quite a lot that we're probably not aware of yet. I think we're understanding that we need to connect with people because we can't. And I think your value when we come out of it, I think we're going to value those connections a lot more. I think the learning how to use digital has been brilliant because we've now realised that we can dial in from anywhere, and it's a bit messy. And everybody has those Zoom meetings where we spend the first 10 minutes going, "Can you hear me? Can you see me? And where's my camera?" and all those types of things. But I sort of think that's really useful. That we're using loads of other platforms. As I say, with Simon, I'm using Facebook Live, which is great because you've got. I suppose it's similar to this, that you've got the questions coming through, so you can actually interact with people all over the world. So that's exciting. I think we're looking at. I think everybody's examining their lives, and we've got time to stop and think. And we don't. Certainly, I know in my November, I ran the Murder One Festival in November, and I was herring around all over the place. And as I say, just before lockdown, I was in London, I was in Frankfurt, I was somewhere else, and I just felt there was a lot of rushing around, and then it all came to a very, very abrupt stop. And I think that's a really good time to sort of sit down and have a think and work out, where you're going, what you're doing, what is life really about. So I think that's been important. So I think they're all positive things that have come out of it. It's good. And here we are. We're doing an afternoon tea. You and I are chatting. So that's positive too.
And how do you think the publishing industry will change as a result of the pandemic as a whole?
How's it going to change? I think it's going to. I mean, one of the big things is the bookshops shutting, and that was a big shock. I think everybody that all of a sudden the supply chain just has broken totally. So people switching to buying online and doing a lot more stuff online has, I think, opened up opportunities now. I think publishers are seeing that. I think a lot of bookshops realised they needed to have an online presence. There are an awful lot of independent bookshops that had no website at all and have struggled as a result of that. And some who had enough of a website to get it up and running and now are, working that way. So I think, I think as with any business, there's going to be a knock-on effect. But I think one of the key things about publishing is that one of the things people have realised in lockdown is that we need books and we need writers, and we need particularly fiction writers because we need that escapism. We need to be able to get out of this in our minds. And I'm hoping that will have a knock-on effect to more people buying fiction and more people reading fiction, and maybe people who haven't read it before reading fiction. So that's a positive. So yeah, I think it'll struggle. I think every business is going to struggle without any question at all. But I think hopefully it'll come out better than some other industries. Let's say that. I think the airline industry could be struggling a bit for a while longer. But I think really people have realised the value of books, and that's really, really important.
The final question for me is: you're a member of our management committee. What does the SoA mean to you?
The SoA is an amazing organisation. I think it's because it's just such a big one, and there are 11,000 members, aren't there, all over the UK. But we were speaking today. I've literally just come out of the management meeting. We were talking about some of the groups around the world, and they were saying that there were some in Spain and all over the place. And I think it's a really important organisation to connect writers. Because one of the things about being a writer, as you guys all know, is that you are on your own. You're very much isolated. You connect with your agent if you're lucky enough to have an agent. And if you've got a great agent that's going to chat to you and you've got an open line of communication, that's brilliant. But it's still you and one other person. And obviously you connect to readers, but again maybe through websites, you're slightly removed from your reader. So so from that perspective, the SoA is amazing because it just connects people. And the contract advice that they give is just second to none. I mean, it's so important. I work with an awful lot of authors, some published, some unpublished, people published by different types of publishers. And I see an awful lot of contracts that really could have done with some help. And so that's just vital. So I think it's an amazing organisation. And it's really good. It's just good to know that there's other people out there like you. One of the things about being a writer is that nobody really understands what being a writer is about except another writer. And I think it's really important to be able to connect with your tribe, find your tribe. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Thank you. That's all for me. Thank you very much. I'm just going to go through the chat now. So we've got a question from Lisa Dowswell. Do you think there will be a spate of lockdown fiction being published in coming months and years?
I think that's a really good question. Personally, I don't know that I want to read any lockdown fiction. I think there might be a bit, but it's a case of what do readers want? Do they want to be reminded of what lockdown or not? Bear in mind that it takes a year from book to, generally speaking, to go from contract to bookshelf. And if writers are writing now, then I suppose if you've written a book and you can change it into a lockdown book and it gets signed now and it comes out even very quickly in say 6 months, do we really want to be reading about it then? Where are we going to be in 6 months' time? I'm just starting a new book and it's going to be published, hopefully, if my publisher releases a contract, in 2022. And so I'm thinking now hopefully the world will be back to normal in 2022. So but what normal is that going to be? So I have to sort of nearly wait a little while to see how my characters are going to be interacting and what's going to be going on and what the new normal is going to be before I can write the book in some ways. I'm not too sure about that. Bound to be some, but I mean, there's a lot. Sorry, I don't interrupt your question, but there's a lot of books. There's been a little bit of a rush recently of books, sort of country house type books, in this sort of Agatha Christie mode of, those. I think Kelly Taylor wrote one, and there's one it's got a yellow cover. I've got the title of Hopeless. But there's been some great books like that, and they're nearly like lockdown books. In fact, the book I've got coming out in January is called The Dark Room, and it's set in a country house hotel in West Cork, where it's lashing rain and there's no internet. So it's nearly like a lockdown book, but it's not a lockdown book, So it's so wait and see.
Emma Sterling asks, what are your thoughts on self-publishing as opposed to the traditional route?
I think self-publishing can be an amazing opportunity. I know good few people who have, particularly Carmel Harrington, who I was talking to the other day online and in the podcast, and another friend of mine called Hazel Gaynor, have both really self-publishing has opened doors for them incredibly. I think the key thing about self-publishing, I like the idea of them running together, traditional publishing and self-publishing running, and it being, I think as an author, you need to be open to all options rather than just saying it's one or the other. And I suppose the key thing with self-publishing is understanding what goes into it and making sure that you're prepared for that. And it is like running your own business, if you're going to self-publish, and you really need to mimic the traditional publishing process. So you need to make sure that the book's really well edited, that it's got a really fantastic cover, that you really understand the process and you understand the marketing and all that types of thing, if you're going to go into it. But it can be fantastic and it can open amazing doors. And you can sell loads of copies. I did a brilliant event with Amazon, live streamed an event a couple of years ago with Amazon, and Mark Dawson was there, and he's just has a phenomenal publishing career, with self-publishing himself. So yeah, I think it's horses for courses, in the same way that different people do different jobs. I think it's an open world now, which is really exciting for writers. When I started writing 15, 20 years ago, there were a lot more limitations, and really traditional publishing was your only route. So I think from that perspective, it's very exciting, and that you can be a hybrid author, or, I can write a book that maybe doesn't quite fit in with the publishing process or the books that I'm writing at the moment, that's a bit different, and I could self-publish that and, give it away to loyal readers, or whatever I wanted to do with it. So yeah, it's exciting.
Thank you. Sheila Johnston asks, agents and publishers obviously want to build an author's career. Have you found that there is bias, possibly unintentionally, against an author in an older age bracket?
Sorry, you should say that again. Is that I can't see? I didn't quite catch what you said.
One from Sheila Johnston. Agents and publishers obviously want to build an author's career. Have you found that there is a bias, possibly unintentional, against an author in an older age bracket?
No, I don't. Never have, because I think one of the great things about writing is that it doesn't matter how old you are. Because honestly, when a reader picks up your book on the shelf in a bookshop, they've no idea who you are. They're picking up the book for the book's sake, and really the author is you're not there to stand beside them saying, read my book because it's amazing. So I think I've never seen an issue with that. And in fact, an older author brings so much more life experience to the story that the story can be much richer, and also they can be really interesting from a marketing perspective. There can be really interesting marketing angles than somebody who's had a long and interesting life. So and I'm not the youngest person on the planet either, so it's I think it's great. If there's one business where you don't have to worry about how old you are. Just before we went into lockdown, I was talking to some they were from America, a whole bunch of about 25 students from America who were doing a MFA, I think, and they were all worried they were too young, and that and it really isn't a business like that. It's about the story, and it's about the book from a reader perspective. So yeah, it's great that the author's there, and obviously you're marketing your book and you're talking about it and all those things, but at the end of the day, when somebody walks into a bookshop and picks it up, they've no idea who wrote the book. So it's the world's your oyster.
We've got 3 minutes. I'm just going to try and race through.
Oh, I can see the question here. There's a difference between perhaps being a reader and not caring about the age of the author, and an agent judging on whether to take an older author on. No, I think agents work, and you'll see Simon Trewin talks about this in the videos we've done. It's all about story, it's about the book, and as an author, because when you write, you're not climbing Mount Everest. You are sitting at your desk writing a story. You can have a lot of books left in you, even if you're 90. I know Paulbeg have one author who's 90. I think she might be 93 actually. So I wouldn't worry about that. Don't literally be positive, because you are bringing so much more to the picnic than somebody else could do. That it's great. So yeah, don't worry about it.
Thank you. So Francis, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Was the first time you attended the Frankfurt Writers Conference back in March, and how did you find it?
So what was Frankfurt like?
Yeah, the Writers Conference.
Frankfurt. Oh, the Writers Conference. Oh, it was great. It's good actually. Yeah, there's a whole load of different people at it. This year we had Mary Costello, who's written the most amazing book called The River Capture, and I was absolutely transfixed by her talk, actually. I mean, I don't think they videoed it, which was a shame, but she's mesmerising. So if anybody can ever see Mary Costello and find out about her process, which is so detailed, literally, she writes the chapter and then she rewrites the chapter and then she reads it over and she prints it off, and she will spend 6 weeks working on one chapter to get it word perfect, before she moves on to the next one. And I was mesmerised. Andrew Miller was there too. And he's fascinating. He's such an absolute character, and he's written such a variety of books. It was just wonderful, actually. They had a really good blend of different speakers. So it was good fun. Yeah, it was good. I've done it a few times. I did it with Kit Duvall the previous year. I can't remember who was there the first. I think this is the third one I've done. I can't remember who was at the first one. It's terrible, isn't it? But yeah, no, it's good fun. Yeah, I love doing conferences. I love meeting people and chatting to them, and it's a great opportunity to find out, about the writers out there and what everybody's working on, and you always meet interesting people. To me, everybody has a story, so it's when I'm meeting people, I'm really interested in other people's stories and listening to them and finding out what they're all about, because that's I suppose what's feed your own stories, doesn't it?
And Lynn says she loves your podcast, Vanessa. Can you get someone on who will interview you for it?
Somebody to come interview me? Oh, yeah, I have to do that. Thank you, Abby. I'll have to do that. Yeah, let's see. I'll find a winning victim.
I've just got 2 more. So Carlotta Eden, she said she's always wondered, as someone with a pen name, do you ever get jealous of yourself? And have you ever met someone who didn't know you were Sam Blake and you surprised them?
Yes. I don't get jealous of myself because I really enjoy being Sam Blake. I think actually I've probably got some sort of bizarre split personality. I'd like to spend more time being Sam Blake, I think. But yeah, lots of people don't know it's me. Lots of people, it's a bit hard for me. I think if I wasn't well known, I suppose in Ireland I'm quite well known for what I do under my own name. If I wasn't, I think I'd probably just be Sam Blake all the time. So I've got a couple of friends who would be who have pen names, and nobody ever knows their real name. But yeah, no, I know I did a radio thing. It was actually hilarious because I did a radio thing with a lady from Dubray Books. Dubray Books was one of our big independent booksellers. I've known her for years, and she's a huge bookseller, knows everybody. She's big into hand selling books and everything. We went into News Talk, which is a big radio station, and to do this thing. And she sat down and she said she'd known me. I was about 2 years into writing as Sam Blake, and she said, I didn't realise you were Sam Blake. I just thought that was hilarious because one of my problems is I tend to assume people do know what I do, and because I do lots of different things across lots of different areas, it can be confusing. So yeah, a lot of people don't realise that it's me, and I think they think it's somebody else.
Thank you. And the last question from Francesca Howell: any tips for doing research during lockdown when we can't get out and about?
Any research and tips for research in lockdown? Well, Google is your friend. Google is your friend. I mean, everywhere, or is anyway. I love when I'm writing. I like to write about locations that I've been to. But Google Street View is great because you can go around. Certainly authors will go around and have a good spy. But no, Google is your friend because you can find so much information. One of the things, if I can't do something, but I'm really interested in, say, a profession or doing something that's, I don't know, let's say it's kayaking down the Amazon. I've never been kayaking down the Amazon. If I had to write that, what I would do is look for someone's blog and find bloggers who've written about that and who've got that first person point of view. And I find that really useful. And it's not something you'd automatically think about when you're researching, but just to find out what other people's, it's a bit like interviewing people, but obviously you don't have to interview them because you can read their blog. So I find that really useful. Yeah, no, I think Google is your friend. Don't worry, you've no barriers, I think, in writing these days, despite lockdown. Apart from the only barrier you've got really is the concentration issue, I think, and the anxiety and the fact that we don't know what earth's happening, but hopefully it'll all sort itself out in due course.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Vanessa. I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you also for encouraging me to host one of these sessions. I've been very busy hiding behind my emails, so thank you for suggesting that I come out of my comfort zone.
I'm delighted. You should do it more often, Sophia. You're really good at it. It's great.
And thank you on behalf of myself and all authors for today and all that you do. And thank you for joining us. And thank you to everyone at home who's tuned in today. And to remind you, all sessions are free, but if you can afford to donate a few pounds to the Authors Emergency Fund, the link is at the top of this chat. And don't forget to join us at the same time next week when we have our head of comms, Martin Reed, who will be having afternoon tea with Lem Sisse. Please head over to our events page, societyofauthors.org/events, to see all the events that we've got coming up next week, including Vanessa, who will be back again hosting a special session on agents and the global pandemic. Thank you very much.
I'm really looking forward to that. And do try, and if you want to, I just do a quick plug here to interrupt you. The contingency fund is amazing. And it's really for all authors who are struggling at the moment, and obviously lots of people have had events cancelled and have discovered that their income has been hugely knocked. So if people are in a position to donate to that or run fundraisers or whatever, please do.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much, Sophia. Take care.
Take care.